So doing the intro outside today. We've had enough of the green screen, so let's stand and talk. Right, so the layout of this video, first we'll be going over the weekly shop. I'll go over the food items I buy on a weekly basis, or almost bi-weekly basis pretty much. Some of the items last me a bit longer than normal, but I'll go over that when we talk about them. I'll then be talking about different meals, showing the meals as well as the macronutrients and calorie amounts in those meals. So you can utilise them yourself if you want to. And then we go over our basal metabolic rate, our total daily energy expenditure, find out how many calories we need, and then we adjust the diet to that number. So we'll get there. It's a long one. I know it's a very long one today, but I believe there's a lot of information here. And again, this is just about my way of eating, the foods I like to eat, the way I've adjusted my diet to suit my lifestyle, and hopefully you can take something from that as well. So enjoy the video. Okay, so welcome to my standard weekly food shop. So before we get started, as I've said in the past, I'm not a nutritionist beyond a level 3 certification in the UK, and I do not consider myself an authority on diet or nutrition, but I have been educating myself and trying to find a diet that works for me over the last 8 years of my training journey. I believe I've been losing weight and gaining relative strength since I implemented my current diet, so I thought, why not share it with you guys and see if you can implement anything from it yourself. Have a go over your own diets and nutrition and see what you can improve, what holes you've got there, how you can make adjustments for lower calorie alternatives if you're trying to lose weight as well, of course. So studies have shown that daily fluctuations in calorie intake are not a major issue. The deciding factor on your weight loss or gain journey is consistency over a long period of time. So we need to find a sustainable way of eating that suits our lifestyle as well as our goals. That is the most important thing, is consistency here. So daily counting and worrying about what you're eating might actually be more stress than it's worth for you. So just to start off with, I would suggest you check your calorie intake if you have no idea where you stand. There's no way you can make adjustments to your diet if you don't know where you're starting from. So find out that number first. I've also shown how I cook all of my standard meals throughout the day. I have my breakfast in the morning, I have my mid-morning snack, I then have all the snacks in between that. Of course, we have the lunch, dinner, and a dessert at the end, which I absolutely love. I cannot tell you how nice my dessert is. So try it for yourself, right? You'll see the recipe when I get to it. But yeah, you have to try that out. It's ridiculously good. So my current calorie intake, I get to around, let's say 1900 calories, and I feel full. So that would suggest that my diet is working, right? If I need to hit 2700 calories or 2600 calories, for example, to meet my total daily energy expenditure number, I have all that spare room to eat snacks or beef it up with whatever I want to do. So I would still be losing weight even if I have snacks on top of my current diet. So that's what I'm talking about by something that actually works for you. I can consistently eat this amount of food and still be in a weight loss. So still be in a calorie deficit for weight loss. But again, find whatever works for you. I like chucking in some things like some random snacks or some ice cream. You know, as long as they're low calorie alternatives, there is no problem at all. And the weekly shop comes to around £65. Of course, I do have some things here that I don't use on a everyday basis, or they last me a bit longer than normal. So for example, a 600 gram bag of cashew nuts is not going to last me a week. That's going to last me slightly longer than a week. Okay, so we're not walking around today because there's a bit too much going on this video. I don't want to confuse myself and overwhelm myself, so we're just going to sit down so I can actually read what I've wrote down here, because there is a lot to talk about in this video. So now I've had a look at the weekly food shop, we know what items we'll be using, but the question now is, how do we put them together? So there is much debate around how much muscle you can gain while also being in a calorie deficit and losing weight at the same time. So while you aren't going to be smashing any powerlifting personal bests with this approach, you can improve your relative strength quite significantly. And relative strength, of course, is contrasted to absolute strength. So let's have a look at the difference between the two now and which one we favour in calisthenics or bodyweight exercise. Absolute strength can be seen as the ability to generate the maximum amount of force regardless of your body size. So this is why powerlifters have great amounts of absolute strength, because mass moves mass, right? So the heavier you are, the easier time you're going to have moving a heavy object. And in competition settings where size and weight is not an issue. You obviously want to be as heavy as you can to improve your absolute strength, right? As I've mentioned, I do not train for absolute strength, I train for relative strength because that is more applicable to my discipline. Personally, while an increase in mass would improve my absolute strength, it would have no bearing on my relative strength because I'd still be gaining weight, right? I like to be as light as I can to make exercises as easy as they can be. It's going to be much easier for you to achieve a one-arm pull-up, for example, if you weigh less because you've got more weight to pull. But if you can keep your strength the same, your relative strength goes up, the move becomes easier for you. As the weight goes down, strength goes up, relative strength improves, and moves like the one-arm pull-up and lever exercises will become easier for you, okay? In my weight loss journey, I've tried starving myself, which didn't work, of course. Well, we were in a calorie deficit, of course, but we don't do it in a healthy way. It's not sustainable. We end up basically having a cheat day every single weekend and then completely offsetting the calories that we've reduced throughout the week, and we just chuck them all in on the weekend with like a big tub of Ben & Jerry's or something like that, which is not a consistent way to eat. It does not work. It doesn't work for me. It might work for you, and that's fine. Find a way of eating that actually works for you. Intermittent fasting was okay when I was a student and I didn't have that many obligations. I could wake up when I wanted, I could go to the gym when I wanted, I could eat when I wanted. So for me to break a fast at 12 p.m. was no big deal because I was just sat in my flat anyway, right? But once you start getting to the real world and you have an office job or something like that, it's quite difficult for you to bring in a whole bag full of food and say, sorry boss, I'm just going to sit down here for 45 minutes and just eat all this food when it's not even my break time. So logistically that didn't work. But the thing with intermittent fasting is it's not going to be it doesn't trick your body into burning more calories than you're eating. It basically just reduces the amount of time you have to intake calories. It basically just limits the amount of time you have to eat calories, okay? So the less time you have to eat, in theory, the less you're actually going to eat, which means less calories intake, which means you lose weight. So with the ketogenic diet, the theory there is that we are basically eating more satiating foods as we're favouring proteins and fats, right? Those foods will fill you up. You will feel full after eating them, therefore you're probably going to eat a bit less. So the calories are down. Calorie deficit, we lose weight. There's no getting around that. You cannot cheat the laws of thermodynamics, okay? It will never happen. So let's get into it then. So where should you start if you're trying to lose weight? So first of all, we need to figure out how many calories we need as a baseline to function as a human being, okay? That is independent of any external movement you're doing, just what it would take to sustain you if you were just to sit down or lay in bed for the whole day. What would you need to maintain your current weight with no energy expenditure? Let's figure that out first. We also call that our basal metabolic rate. I use myself as an example for these calculations just so you can see exactly how it functions in my diet and why I eat the way I do. Now there are so many calculators online that you can use to get this information for yourself without having to go through these long-winded calculations. Okay, I would heavily advise you use an application for this instead of trying to work it out yourself. If you like mathematics, then go ahead, figure these out. I personally do not, so I usually use a calculator online, but for the purposes of this video, I did the calculations myself. So my personal stats, we are 74.8 kilograms at 180 centimeters, which would equate to 165 pounds and 5'10" approximately, right? There's a few different equations we can use for figuring out our basal metabolic rate. We have the Harris-Benedict equation is the one that I'm using here, and they adopt different equations for men and women. I'm using the variable based on the male sex, of course, as that is my gender. And the Harris-Benedict equation uses kilograms and centimeters, which is the first numbers I gave you for myself. There are a ton of apps and websites you can use to get these numbers yourself. You don't have to calculate it all like I'm doing here. I'm going to have to read off my phone for this because numbers confuse me. There's a lot of numbers here. I can't remember them off the top of my head and just read them out to you, so I'm going to read them off my phone. So for the equation of BMR, we have to get the numbers for 13.7516 times our weight, and then on top of that we add 5.033 times our height, and from there we minus 6.755 times our age, and then on top of that, for our gender variable, we add on 66.473, and that brings us to our basal metabolic rate. So let's talk through that with my stats, right? So the 13.7516 multiplied by 74.8, because that's my weight in kilograms, which brings us to 1028.61968 if we want to be, that specific, which we would do as we're doing mathematics here. And on top of that, we then add the height variable here, so plus 5.0033 times 180, because we're 180 centimeters, right? Which brings us to 900.594. And from that number, we then minus our own age as the variable. So we have 6.755 times 27, as that's my age, I'm 27 years old. And on top of that, we had the gender variable being 66.473 to 1,813 calories. So from there, we then have to add on our total daily energy expenditure, as there will be a variable that we multiply it by based on our activity level. Multiply by 1.2 if we're sedentary, which means we don't really do anything, we just have a desk job. 1.375 if we're lightly active. This is what I consider myself as. I always tend to underestimate my activity level throughout the day because there's some variables that I don't add in, such as my cooking oil in most cases. There's a few kind of extra things like that that you kind of forget about throughout the day. So just to be on the safe side, I tend to underestimate my activity levels. We're then multiplying it by 1.55 if you're moderately active, 1.725 if you're very active, which would be intense exercise daily, which is probably more about where I fit. But my steps on average over the week don't tend to be too high. Sometimes they're high, sometimes they're low. So I don't really, even that out as me being very active. I consider myself lightly active because of my steps not being up to par every single day. And then we can do a 1.9 times multiplier if you're extremely active, which would be, marathon running, triathlons, anything that's super intense and very, very calorie draining. And I work a construction job as well as exercising every day as well. So I am active, but like I said again, I prefer to be underestimating than overestimating my activity level, because then I'll be overeating, right? Even though I do have quite a few calories spare in my diet, still, I like to play it safe. So as mentioned, based on this, I would classify myself as lightly active. So if we add a variable for the activity level here, on top of our BMR, it brings us to 2,493 calories, which is the range I pretty much sit in already. So I could even afford to put these calories up a little bit more if I wanted to. However, I'm still on track for my goals. I'm still losing weight. I'm still gaining relative strength. So that's the goal here. So there's nothing really I need to change at this point. I can add more food in if I want to, but I'm okay with where I am at the moment. I feel strong. I feel full. What's there to complain about? It's working for me. That's the point here. It's working for me. Find something that works for you. Why not get even leaner if I want to? I could eventually trickle down into single digits body fat if I really wanted to keep refining and refining it, which I might do. Who knows? And this is how you lose weight here. It's finding something you can be consistent with, not crash dieting, not starving yourself a week and then binging on the weekends. That's not a way to live, all right? Use those calories to balance out your diet in the week, to find something that actually fills you up while also being balanced in calories. It's not just stupidly spiking to you in a surplus or starving yourself, right? Find that middle ground that over a consistent period of time will make adjustments to your body fat. We'll bring it down slowly and consistently, okay? We're not trying to stress ourselves out here. We want to do this in a nice controlled manner. We're trying to improve our lives, aren't we? We're not trying to ruin it and starve ourselves or overeat and then feel bad because we've just ate a whole tub of Ben & Jerry's and now we're having a sugar crash and feel absolutely awful. We're trying to avoid that here. Okay, we're back. Right, so yesterday I filmed about 20 minutes worth of me talking and my head was cut off. So, we're redoing it today, which is why I might look a little bit different, although I'm wearing a black vest again and the same hat on and the same shorts, so we're not actually that different. Okay, so now we have our total daily energy expenditure number. We've got to figure out what's the baseline macros we can hit to maintain our current physique or to maintain our current muscle mass, right? So we want to be hitting a minimum amount of protein. That's pretty much the only macro I really worry about. We have good fats, of course, because we need the body to regulate itself normally, hormone production, all that good stuff. It keeps the body running normally. So fats we do have, I normally keep them around 70 to 80 grams per day. But the protein, as a guideline, we want to look at some study to that, okay? So how much protein should we be getting then in our diet? So we can look at a study entitled A Systematic Review, Meta-Analysis and Meta-Regression of the Effect of Protein Supplementation on Resistance Training-Induced Gains in Muscle Mass and Strength in Healthy Adults. This was conducted by Morton et al. In 2018. Shout out to Shredded Sports Science, James Linker, for giving me this piece of research. So in this study they showed there was no greater benefit past 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight. Okay, so as a safety net, I would advise you hit that minimum of 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight. That also converts to 0.7 grams per pound of body weight, if we're working in pounds rather than kilograms. In terms of my diet, I hit around 218 grams per day, which I believe is around 2.8 grams or 2.9 grams per kilogram of my body weight. But I prefer protein as it actually fills me up. It's much more satiating food, so it's higher in my diet. If you don't like protein as much, you want to focus on carbs instead, have carbs, it's up to you. As long as you're hitting that calorie amount, it makes no difference. I would just advise you keep that 1.6 gram per kilogram of body weight for your protein intake, especially if you're doing resistance training. So as I mentioned, I get 218 grams. However, if I was to hit 119 grams, I would also be at that 1.6 gram per kilogram of body weight number. So I could go down to that limit and be absolutely fine. I have experimented with very, very high protein diets at points. Some days I would be getting up to 300 grams plus of protein. Now I'm about, like I say, 218. And I have noticed no difference in my strength gains or muscle mass during that period. So don't go crazy with it. You don't have to be stuffing protein every single second of the day, okay? So calm down a bit. So let's go over the meals for the day then. So to start the day, I normally have this around 7 AM. We have the oats. And in the oats, I like to mix some powdered peanut butter, some protein powder, some this stuff called Macronutrient here, which is basically a Peruvian ginseng. However, I can't really speak too much about this supplement as the effects are, as with everything, sometimes they prove it does something, sometimes they prove it does nothing at all. So take it how you want it. This stuff is relatively cheap if you buy it online in bulk, and it does have a good amount of protein in it, as well as I like the flavour, and it also thickens up the oats nicely. So for me, it's not an issue. I think with supplements like this, you can draw a parallel line between you consciously making an effort to improve your health, and therefore you feel better as a result of that, okay? So it could be a completely placebo effect, but as long as you're feeling better, what's the difference? What's the difference? If you can utilize a placebo effect to your benefit, why not? And we have this stuff here branded Cacao Crunch, which also has a lot of good fats in it, a lot of fibrous, berries, seeds, all that good stuff, fats, all round just good, okay? So I like to add them in to just boost it up a little bit. It can be quite pricey, but I feel like I'd rather spend my money on a healthy, balanced diet than crash dieting and buying very expensive supplements that are supposed to be fat burners that don't really do the job, okay? So I would say spend that money on actual food instead, okay? And in that meal we have 55 grams of carbs, 30 grams of protein and 19 grams of fats. So all round, great, a great way to start your day off. On top of these oats, I normally grab myself a handful of cashew nuts as well, or almonds, depends on what I've got that week. A bag of nuts will last me around 2 weeks normally. There was a period where I could get through that in about 3 days, which is insane. That's way too many calories. So do not do what I do. Do not binge eat nuts, okay? Do them in moderation, because they are packed with calories. And if weight loss is your goal, they're not very conducive to your goal, are they? When I get to work, I like to have an apple. I use the Pink Lady variants here, as that's the flavour I like. So then around 10 AM, when I have my first break at work, I will have my sausages and eggs with some sriracha sauce on top of it. Sausages are these Heck brand sausages. I've been using these for about 3 years now, as they are super nice, very low calorie, high protein, all the good stuff, all the things I'm looking for in a food. So I see no reason to adjust these or remove them from my diet anytime soon. They've been doing great work for me so far. Just keep it up. And on top of that, we have the eggs. I normally use 3 eggs per meal, depending on the size, of course. Although medium to large, not really too much difference. So go with what size egg you like. If I can get an extra large, sometimes I go for an extra large. It really depends on, it depends on what's in the store really. I always prefer a free range egg. If we're looking at macronutrients, between a free range and a caged hen, we don't really have too much difference. But the vitamin profile and a darker yolk does lean me towards going for free range eggs most of the time. I only go for caged eggs when there are no free range eggs available, but if that's my only choice, a caged egg will do. Great fats from the eggs in here. We have great amount of protein as well from the eggs and sausages, of course. And the sauce itself, I believe it comes to around 24 calories for a splash of that per meal. So the sauces are well worth checking. Make sure you're using low calorie sauces, okay? Sriracha sauce is a mainstay for many people in the fitness industry, due to the reason it's very tasty and it's very low calorie. 51 grams of protein here is super good. While on the subject of sauces, I also use, in my chicken, I use a Nando's sauce, which is also very low calorie. I used to use a reggae sauce, which was bonnet chilies, I do believe, but the carbohydrate content on that, you get a 300 gram bottle, 100 grams of that gave you 30 grams of carbohydrates, which is basically, that would split up into 2 meals most of the time, so I'd be getting around 35, 36 grams of carbohydrates just on my sauce alone, which is another meal in itself. So why not use them calories on other food that I want and I enjoy more? The sauce was very nice, don't get me wrong, but I get just the amount of same satisfaction from the Nando's or the Sriracha sauce compared to this one. Whenever I cook meals, I tend to double up on them. So we have a pack of sausages here, which is 10 sausages. So we have 5 sausages per meal. And eggs, we do a carton of 6 normally, which would give us to 3 eggs per meal. You would say, oh, why are you microwaving eggs? Microwaved eggs are absolutely fine, there's nothing wrong with them. Just make sure you're stirring them regularly to keep them nice and fluffy. I like to pour a little bit of milk in there as well. Nothing crazy, you probably add about 10 calories on for the milk. It's nothing major. Likewise with the oats, when we poured that in, we probably had around 70 calories for milk. But like I say, when I was determining my BMR and my TDEE, there are some reasons why I underestimate my activity levels because of variables like the milk or the coconut oil in the cooking, for example. With the cooking, it's quite hard for me to, so we say an 8 milliliter serving of coconut oil, right? But that would be split between 10 sausages. So it would be extremely hard for us to calculate exactly how much fat we're getting per 5 sausages, because they're not going to cook evenly a lot of the time. The pan might be a bit uneven. There's no real way of getting that down scientifically. So unless we analyse each individual sausage, which is unedible at that point. So don't worry about it too much. Just make sure you're accounting for those extra 100 or 120 calories per day with those extra variables added on, okay? So under eating in general, if you're trying to lose weight, obviously that's what we're doing because we're trying to lose weight. Calorie deficit means we lose weight. So make sure you make space for those extra variables, okay? Because if it comes to it and you're like, oh, I was 50 calories, I was only 50 calories under, and I've gained weight, well, you might be missing out the milk or the oil. You might be missing out another 100 calories there, so you're still in that slight calorie surplus. But again, it's not going to be an exact science, so just play it by ear, really. Just figure it out for yourself. You'll get it dialed in eventually. And microwaved eggs can store for a good few days as well, so don't worry about, oh, I've got to cook fresh eggs every time. You don't need to. They'll be fine. I think the longest I've stored some is like 4 days, and there've been no issues at all with that. So don't blame me if you get ill though, okay? But yeah, in my personal experience, I've never had any adverse effects from storing eggs for multiple days at a time in the fridge. So now we'll talk about the meal I've been showing this whole time while I've been talking, the chicken and couscous. So chicken, couscous, and the vegetables as well here. So I'll be honest with you, before quarantine started, I was not the biggest consumer of fruit and vegetables. I had to force myself to eat bananas when I was younger, so I developed a taste for them eventually, but I had to force that upon myself. I did the same thing with apples during quarantine, and I also started eating broccoli, cauliflower, carrot, everything. I started eating a lot more fibrous fruits and vegetables because I needed them in my diet. I was really lacking them, and since I've started eating them, I've noticed such a massive difference in my energy levels, as well as weight loss as well, because they're extremely low calorie and they actually fill you up. That's the biggest thing about vegetables and fruit, is that they're low calorie and they will fill you up, which means you won't be having cravings and you'll have the room to snack on everything else and go way over your calorie amount, okay? So fruit and veg is your best friend if you're trying to lose weight. Not to mention just for keeping yourself healthy as well. We got all the vitamins there, all the good stuff. So eat your fruit and veg. To that tune as well, I will say, if there's a way that helps you get the fruit and veg into your diet, but you have to pay a bit more for it, I'd say do it. So you can waste all the money you want on supplements and trying to burn, burn fat with fat burners and all these pointless things that don't really have any proof to them. Or you could use that money to balance out your diet and spend more money on things to make it more convenient for yourself, so you actually get the foods you need to eat. So for example here, the company Bird's Eye, they do these steam fresh vegetable bags, right? You get four in a packet, and they're like basically come to 50p per packet. Now you'd be thinking, oh, veg is cheap though, I don't want to pay that much for veg. Well, I don't like preparing vegetables. I'm not going to spend the time to do it. Maximum time I spend in the kitchen is normally around 15 to 20 minutes time. Maximum, because it's not where I enjoy being. Sometimes I'm in the mood to cook and it's great, but a lot of times if it's learning something new like that, like steaming vegetables or anything like that, I don't want to do it. I'm not going to learn it. So how do I come around that? I buy these instead, and it works perfectly for me. So spend the money on making your life easier to get your nutrition profile much more complete, okay? Don't scrimp out on these kind of things. Likewise with the apples, you could be looking at this and say, oh, $2.75 for a pack of 6 apples, that's expensive. No, it's not. Trust me, because you just spend, what were you going to do with that £2? Seriously, what were you going to do at £2? You're going to buy some chocolate bars or something that wasn't even going to satisfy you. So that's the problem here. That's the problem here, is that you buy, like I had a bad day yesterday. I went shopping and I bought a pack of cookies. I ate the pack of cookies and they didn't even satisfy me. It's never enough. It's never enough for you. If you have those cravings, it's never enough. You need to fill yourself up and do it in the correct way. So fruit and veg, eat them. Eat fruit and veg, okay? Stop being a child like I was and eat your fruit and veg. And you'll see me adding these crushed chilies into my food pretty much all the time. Whenever I cook chicken, I add these on. Very low calorie, just a few carbs in there. Nothing major, just adds a lot of flavour as well. So again, it's quite expensive to buy these chilies, but they last me a very long time. And they spice up my food very nicely and make it more palatable for me. So I buy it, I spend the money on it. I usually alternate between a packet of couscous here or a bag of steam fresh rice, likewise by the same company, Bird's Eye. So completely personal preference there for you, whatever you want to eat. You have a slightly more calories in the rice, but nothing major. It's like 4 more calories or so. So don't feel, have options. Don't just have one food that you eat. Don't just have one carb source that you consume. Make sure you've got options to switch it up and keep yourself entertained, okay? The couscous is super easy. All you've got to do is pour 160 millilitres of water into a bowl, pour it in, stir it up, leave it 5 minutes, and that's it. Boiled water, by the way, so make sure you have a kettle. In this meal we have 34 grams of protein with 14 grams of fat and 39 grams of carbohydrates. And that 14 grams of fat is me being generous with the calories, because that splits between 2 meals. I'm not eating the whole amount of the cooking oil in one go. And a lot of it doesn't even go in the meal. A lot of it stays on the pan. So, like I said, there are some variables we're not going to be able to do 100% calculations with, so this is one of them. And I'm currently working 40 plus hours a week, so an average day for me would look like this. So 7 AM we wake up, we have the oats, we have some nuts, and the apple when we arrive at work for 8 AM. Around 10 AM we have the break and have the sausages and eggs. 1 PM we have the chicken, veg and couscous. Then 4 PM before, or when we're leaving work, when we're driving back, we have a banana. That's our pre-workout meal. I get home, I'll start working out around 5, half 5 normally. I normally do my live streams with it, and we'll work out for about 2.5 hours. Sometimes up to 3, it depends really. So 7 PM or later we have our post-workout meal. So for me, that could look like many things, but to give you an example of an average day, I would have a baked cookie by My Protein, right, which is just a protein snack, and then I'd have a tin of tuna as well. You're thinking, oh, that's not very, that's not very healthy. Okay, macros are macros. If we have protein there, it's protein. If we have fats there, it's fat. If we have carbs, we have carbs. We have calories, okay? Don't go crazy about, oh, I've got to make sure I'm doing this. If I've just finished a long day of work and streamed and worked out, and I've still got a lot of stuff to do in the evening, I'm not going to stand there for half an hour cooking meals, okay? Usually I have some spare chicken cooked up, which I can just decant into another container, and then I'll add some, slap some rice in there, some more couscous or something like that. But in terms of a busy day, a protein cookie and a tin of tuna is not really that bad. We could do much worse than that, okay? So as we just talked about the protein snacks, let's talk about the snacks that I actually do have here. So I like to use a company called Macronutrient. I'm sure you're familiar with them. I've been through pretty much their whole catalogue of snack foods, so I feel like I have a good place to speak from to give recommendations. Right, so let's talk about the baked protein cookies here, as we just spoke about them. These are extremely nice. They actually do curb your cravings. If you have a sweet tooth and you're looking for something nice and soft, you're probably thinking, oh, a protein cookie is not really going to be that nice, right? The standard protein cookies are very hard. They are quite dense. These ones are much lighter. They have a very nice texture to them, and they will actually solve your cravings. So if you're looking for that, this is the way to go. Like I say, they've got less protein, but as long as they are a healthier snack for you going for that, or a chocolate bar, go for the protein variant, okay? Even if it's not got as much protein as the full protein one, it's still going to sort you out. You're not going to have to eat that chocolate bar afterwards because you're not, satisfied about it. This will help you out, okay? So like I said before, spend the money on snacks and food that will actually satisfy you and keep you on track. They also have these protein balls. I believe they are soy puffs, but they are extremely low calorie. I think there's about 185 calories per bag. Great bit of protein in there, and these are really nice to mix in with the Skyr Icelandic yogurt. So what I like to do with that is I grab half a tub of the Icelandic yogurt, I'll mix it into a bowl. I will then add in half a scoop of protein powder. They have Impact Whey Protein is the one I like to use from Macronutrient. But there are a few caveats here. The flavour of the protein powder does affect your experience quite dramatically. So the more chocolatey based ones, they're quite sharp. They don't tend to go too well with this yogurt, as the yogurt itself can be a little bit sour. I would advise you use something with a softer flavour on it, like this blueberry cheesecake flavour or a salted caramel. Those go so nice with this. So what we do after that, put that in the freezer for about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how frozen you want it. Then once we pull it out, after giving it a good stir, before it goes in of course, it's going to be quite hard when it's frozen, we grab the protein balls, crush them up. I like crushing them up. You can have them in there full if you want, it's completely up to you. Completely personal preference on that one. I crush them up, pour them in, mix it up, and my god, it is so nice. And it's 55 grams of protein in that. Insane. Absolutely insane amount of protein in that, and it's so good. So give that a go. Let me know how you like it, because I'm sure you're going to like it a lot, okay? Especially if you're in the UK, because that's where a lot of these products are based. So have fun with that. Okay, so in terms of the fruit consumption question, let's have a look here. We have a study done by Smodgis et al. In 2019 entitled Metabolic Effects of a Prolonged Very High Dose of Dietary Fructose Challenge in Healthy Subjects. And they gave them up to 150 grams of fructose, right? And there was no adverse effects on the metabolism. And that's extremely high amounts. So you having one apple and a banana today is not going to make you fat, okay? So please, just stop with the whole fruit makes you fat thing, fructose is bad, all this stuff. It's a piece of fruit. Anyway, that's all from me. I hope you got something out of this. Maybe there's some food options here and some recipes that you can slap together yourself and input into your own diet and your lifestyle. I feel like these have worked perfectly for me. I've spent the last, realistically, let's say 6 years dialing my diet in, because I was pretty clueless before that. So these are all the foods that I've stuck with over the years. I've made adjustments along the way, of course, as my goals have changed and as new products have come out on the market. But this is my ideal way of eating, okay? For me personally, this works absolutely fine. Of course, like I mentioned about the dinner, for example, there could be some substitutions made there if I was not working 40 plus hours a week and trying to do everything else I'm trying to do. So this is a realistic way of eating for somebody with a busy lifestyle, okay? And it's worked fine for me. So if you enjoyed, got something out of it, drop a like, subscribe, all the good stuff, because most of the people that watch my videos aren't even subscribed to me. which I understand, of course. You know, you need consistent content before you feel comfortable to drop the sub, or you could just forget, you know. But if you forgot, press the button now for me, please. It helps me out massively, makes me feel good, of course, and likes, of course, always help my videos get more seen. So if you can drop likes as well, I'd be very happy about that. But yeah, that's it from me. Hopefully you can get your diet in check, get your nutrition to a position where you can be consistent with it and make overall progress over a long period of time, rather than just doing crash dieting and failing again and again. So find something that works for you, invest your resources into being consistent, don't waste money on bad supplements that are a waste of time and money, and yeah, hopefully next time you see me, I might be even leaner, and maybe you will be too. But if you're the same, if you're happy the weight you are, then stay the weight you are. I'm not telling you that being lean is good or being big is bad. It's however you feel. What's your goals? That's what matters. That's what will determine the question, okay? So, have fun. Okay. Take it easy. Bye-bye. Also, we're live streaming a lot on Twitch recently, so come watch me on Twitch. Follow my Instagram as well, because why not? Okay, bye-bye.